Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Smith's Grove Sanatorium Radio. I'm Zoe.
And I am the super mother bug, Gabby. And welcome back.
So, if you can't already tell, we are actually doing the 2006 film Bug by William Friedkin. And what did you think about the movie?
Oh, I love it. It was my turn to pick this week, and it's not like... It is a horror movie, but not in the traditional sense. It's very much like, I don't know. What do you call it? I'm blanking on the name. Psychological horror.
Yeah, it's definitely a psychological horror because, this is, spoiler alert, I guess you could say. This film is essentially about mental illness. It's about, what is it? Delusional parasitosis, or that combined with delusional schizophrenia or something that they actually call it in the film.
It's also called delusional infestation. So if we use any of those words during this recording, it all means the same thing.
And then it develops into like a folie à deux, which is like madness of two, a shared delusion between two different people, essentially. All right, well, you know what? But my wife loves it, and I really like it. I think it's really good. It's actually based on a play, and it was written for the screen by Tracy Letts, the same person who wrote the play. And believe it or not, they actually worked on another film together. They worked on Killer Joe, with Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, my God. That is an insane and twisted movie.
I love it, though. I think it's a really good film. But, so I guess without ado, let's get to it.
Okay. So the very first scene is a bloodied dead body lying in a room that is covered with tinfoil. You get like 5 seconds of this, and then it just cuts to a field.
Well, yeah, you get like 5 seconds of this, and then you hear a telephone ring, and a woman picks up, and she says, hello, and then it cuts to this overview shot of rural Oklahoma, or what's supposed to be Oklahoma, and it's just like kind of overhead shot. Then it eventually leads into like this seedy motel in bumfuck nowhere, and
it's not seedy. It's called the Rustic Motel. It's rustic.
Yes, we find out that it's called Rustic Motel. She's in room number 7. I don't know why specifically, but there's a moment at the beginning they make sure to show you what room number she's in. That's
funny. Like the number 7 is actually considered like a lucky number, generally.
Well, she wasn't really lucky with this whole thing, but yeah. So she keeps on receiving these random phone calls. She's yelling. Some dude named Jerry telling her to drop dead. Obviously, it's some fucked up ex, which we'll meet later on or whatever. And that's pretty much it for the beginning, because she just falls asleep, wakes up, it's the next day. She walks outside. You see her car with a flyer on the windshield, and it's an auto body shop or whatever. And then she looks at all the other cars, and it's only her car that has it. So she's kind of like, it's singling her out because she has a shitty car, I guess.
Basically, well, probably the other cars didn't look too well. I saw it as the movie kind of like setting up the paranoia that's about to come, like giving you reasons.
Okay. But I don't know, maybe the multiple phone calls even before that, and just no one saying anything on the other line could be setting up, paranoia. Obviously, yeah. She's obviously running away from something or not wanting to be found by somebody.
Yeah.
So then it shows her. She's at a grocery store, and she's about to get a bottle of liquor, and some weird creepy guy just reaches over her and grabs it. And he has like glasses on. He looks like he should be a serial killer.
Yeah. Then he just says, "Excuse me," and walks away. Like, it was just really rude in any kind of situation. Rude and creepy.
And then the next thing is, I guess it's trying to set up some plot. We find out in the future it is setting up some like background, because she just starts staring at like these onions or whatever, and then you hear like these overlay audio track of like children's voices, and then she stares at a shopping cart, and she's just like
It's like a
zoned out.
mini cart for children.
Yeah. And then it just cuts to a bar that she's working at, which turns out to be it's a lesbian bar, a gay bar, whatever term you use specifically for that.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
Well, I mean, the first shot is like two girls dancing together, and then like their hands are like on each other's butts.
I totally didn't even. I'm just now realizing that was a gay bar. I just assumed it was just a bar. Oh, fuck. That explains some stuff later on, too.
Well, I mean, her best friend RC is a
lesbian, yeah.
So, but yeah, so they're there, and then we find out her name is Agnes at this point. We didn't find out her name until this point. And she's just talking to her best friend, talk about, shooting the shit. And then apparently RC's like, I want you to meet somebody or whatever. And then it cuts again. There's like a lot of cuts from like random locations.
It is. I feel like as we're talking about this, it's not making the movie sound good. But like just give it a little longer. And if you haven't seen this movie, seriously watch it. We're not giving it justice right now.
I mean, see, the thing is, from a film standpoint, Friedkin is using something. I mean, it's editing to make continuity or whatever of what he's doing, but it's cutting from place to place, But each next scene relates to the back scene, like yeah, RC's like, I want to introduce you to somebody. The next scene it cuts and you see a car driving up to Agnes's motel, and RC gets out with this guy. Peter, played by Michael Shannon, which I love Michael Shannon. He's a fantastic fucking actor. And Ashley Judd is a pretty good actress, too. She plays Agnes. So, but yeah, so, so they go in the room, and I don't know, you kind of don't see Michael Shannon for a moment or whatever,
I kind of assumed he just, like, was gone, actually.
I mean, you see them, like, cutting up cocaine and, like, partying and shit like that, and then like RC's talking, and so I'm like, are you gonna take all day in there? And then he's coming out, and then you realize, oh, he's there. And I guess Peter heard Agnes say talk about Agnes doesn't really like new people, so in the film at this moment she's like talking about like this guy, like, I can't believe you brought him over here, I don't really trust new people. And like he could be an axe murderer, right? And so I guess Peter heard that. So when he came out, he just kept on going, I'm not an axe murderer.
And they kind of just kept ignoring him.
I'm not an axe. Yeah, they kept on talking, and they're just ignoring him. I'm not an axe murderer. And eventually, like Agnes, like acknowledges that he said that, and yeah. And then it's just like awkward conversation at this point, because just Peter, Michael Shannon's character, is just awkward. And then RC gets this phone call, and her friend LaVoice apparently hit someone because he squeezed her butt or some bullshit. And then there's like a threat. So she's like, oh, I gotta fucking leave. I gotta go to the party. And she asks Peter, and Peter's all like, no, I'm gonna stay or whatever. So he decides to not go against the party. So she leaves. So it's just Agnes and Peter now. And now it's kind of like this weird, like awkward romantic scene going on, because they're kind of walking around. They walk over to the swing set, and they're just kind of getting to know each other. It seems kind of like romantic, because they're, you could tell like these two are actually starting to like each other, kind of bond. I mean, I think this is like initially where they first start implanting the mental illness within Peter, because he's just acting really weird, and he's bringing up like awkward things, like something about like his mother died or some shit like that. Like it was just kind of out of nowhere, and just the way he starts saying things, I think it just started to like introduce you that like there's something up with Peter.
He's being very antisocial. Like, he doesn't quite know. It's showing you...
This is a psychology student, so she kind of knows a little bit what she's talking about.
I'm not a professional by any means. Don't have my degree yet.
That's why I said student, but yeah. Okay.
Anyway, he's just... It's just showing you that he doesn't... get out much or talk to people a lot, so he doesn't know social standards. He's in himself a lot. And you soon come to realize it's because of the type of mental illness he has.
And I think I think this is also where the first time where he kind of says something about, like, women aren't his bag. But you find out, like he's, like, saying, like, he's not gay or whatever. It's just, like, he just, I don't know, can't be around women that well, I guess. Yeah. Like, I don't know. He doesn't understand how to speak to a woman itself, you know?
Yeah. And you come to find out he's from Beaver. Where's Beaver?
I don't know. He says up in the Panhandle. So, a Panhandle of Oklahoma. And his dad's a preacher or whatever. And then comes the first of many lines that are just fucking hilarious in this show. Is, he's like, well, I'm from Beaver. And she goes, we're all from Beaver, ain't we?
And he, being the antisocial little nugget he is, it flies completely over his head, but Zoe and I were just laughing our asses off.
Yeah. And then from there, it cuts back into the hotel room, and I guess they went back inside. And he's staring at these painting, and then this is like more clues, because he's talking about the painting. He's like, if you stare at it long enough, you start seeing the things. You see the people, little things here. And she's looking at it, she's like, I'm not really seeing nothing. You know, and it's like this real, like, intense scene of, like, looking. And then chirp. 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 And he's like, you hear that? And she's like, hear what? And then eventually she acknowledges that she hears a cricket. So next comes the scene of them just searching around, like, the whole fucking apartment, trying to find a cricket. He's like, is it in there? No, it's in there. In there. And then it turns out, guess what? It's a smoke alarm. And, I don't know. It's weird. I guess instead of, taking out the battery like a normal person, she hands him a magic 8-ball and tells him to kill the son of a bitch.
Yeah. Remember, it kind of seems detached from the other scene we just saw, but they are hyped up on drugs and probably quite drunk right now.
Well, I don't think he did any drugs, but she did. I never showed him do any cocaine or crack or anything.
I guess it didn't. Still, he probably wouldn't know. Like, with the way he's been thinking and talking the whole night, it kind of makes sense to me that he would just go along with what she says of how to make the noise stop.
And then this is where Peter starts bringing up conspiracy theories for the first time about plutonium and how it's just, like, everywhere and all this stuff. And I don't know. Like, it's really starting to lay on this thick stuff. But so she asks, like, if you have a place to stay. He says no, so she offers the couch, and then that's basically the end of this scene. Like, it goes out, right, and then we're looking at the hotel, and it's showing the overhang of the motel, and it has, like, this blue light that goes down over the overhang, which I thought was kind of interesting, because the blue light resembles of, like, those bug zappers that you hang outside. The blue light that's tracked to them to kill them and whatnot. So, I don't know, I thought that was just kind of an interesting color choice to use for the outside of the motel. I don't know if that's indicative of what's about to happen. Particularly, I can see it being indicative, but I'm not sure if it was meant that way, but I just thought it was interesting.
I think it had some kind of purpose to it, because I've never seen any kind of motel or hotel light looking like that before.
If I ever owned a motel, I'd probably do, like, a blue light like that, because I think it's fucking cool, So, but all right, so wakes up next day, right? And she's looking around, and there's someone in the fucking shower, and guess it turns out to be that beautiful and talented man, Harry Connick Jr. Sorry, I don't know why everyone loves Harry Connick Jr.
I didn't even realize that was him.
Yeah.
I won't even call him the character by his name.
Jerry Goss is his name, but yeah.
He's the asshole.
He's an abusive ex-boyfriend, right? And it turns out he's a fucking snitch, too. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so great stuff, And they're just arguing, she's being aggressive and he's being passive. It's like abusive type of shit. He looks over and he sees, like, a fucking tray of cocaine and a crack pipe, and it's like, you're still on this shit, and And then it kind of gives you information about more of like he went to prison because he tried to kill her. I guess he used to be pretty bad. Alcohol. I mean, I just have a note here. It just says abusive piece of shit. So, I mean, I didn't really care to write much. Something, and then she mentions Lloyd, which we find out's the son of them and how he's missing. And he decides to beat her up then at that point.
He slapped her, got really mad. She's on the floor bleeding, and he leans over her and says, whose fault is it that you got slapped? And she straight up immediately says, mine. Like, this has been a long time abuse that's been happening.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how long he's been in prison or not, but I guess she never got therapy or into anything to start standing up for herself, so she still has that mindset of being a victim in an abusive relationship. All right, but Peter shows back up, and Jerry and him kind of stare each other down, but Jerry just really takes money and so like, I'll be back in a few couple days. I plan on hanging my hat here, you know. And then Peter starts helping out Agnes, you know, like getting her like ice and shit like that. And I just how blunt Michael Shannon is when it comes to these lines. He's just like, I don't like he hit you. I don't like that he hit you. And it's just kind of like, okay, yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone likes it, and you don't really have to clarify it, but, you know, that's just his character or whatever. So, and then he starts talking. I'm not exactly sure what happens in between on my notes, because my next note is just he starts talking about a mind control conspiracy, about technology and chemicals and the machines. He starts talking about the machines, right? He's like, at night, you're sleeping, you can hear the machines running. And that's kind of the point. Like, they want you to know that you are aware that the machines are up and running.
Yeah, all my notes say is Peter starts going on a rant about machines, and then it goes to a line he says. His rant must have not really meant much to us or made a lot of sense to us, because neither one of us really...
I mean, I don't know. To me, I'm kind of into conspiracy theories and stuff. It just seemed kind of like the run-of-the-mill thing. You know, it wasn't even worded that well, you know? So I guess I just didn't really care to think about it. I mean, I just have, at night you can hear the machines and aware that the machines are up and running. So, I mean, I guess it's the only point that I guess to come out of this is now it's starting to show some severe paranoia within his character specifically. Yeah. And then he says, you lied to me or something like that about having a kid.
Me. Yeah.
And she explains how Lloyd disappeared at a grocery store 10 years ago.
When she was buying onions. She forgot the onions. So, I mean, the scene at the grocery store now makes sense. It's just when I first watched it, at least, it was just kind of silly to me. Like, she's staring at onions. Now she's staring at a cart. Cool.
Yeah, but yeah, we're starting to get some context when it comes to that. I guess she's like... And then they discuss, like, how long she's been looking for him and just how he just kind of disappeared and the FBI wouldn't help her and all this shit, you know? And then she's just kind of like, oh, I think it's kind of nice having you around, you know? And she offers the couch to him again, you know, just because she's like, you could stay here another night. And then comes just a little stupid dialogue and then some favorite lines here. Well, first she goes, I haven't been to bed with a woman in a long time. I think I could go to bed with you. And then it cuts over to her, and she says, come here, boy.
And then we just... it turns into, like, sweaty boobs. There's a lot of spit.
Yeah,
body
it's
parts
a pretty,
everywhere.
Like, it's kind of a graphic sex scene, but not too graphic. But yeah, it's like, it's really focusing on the texture of skin. Like, you see, like, sweat, like, dripping down her breast and all on them and stuff like that.
My only notes for this is lots of spit, squishy noises, images of insects.
And it says, well, yeah, my notes are like, and we now have the sex scene really focusing on texture sketcher. One, it just says sweaty boob. And the other says, it starts looking at Michael Shannon's character, and he doesn't look like he's present within the moment. He's just kind of staring up or whatever. And that's when they start having the flashes of bugs and insects during the rest of the sex scene. So I didn't know if that was actually anything. Maybe that's just his sex face, I guess. I don't know.
Oh god,
But
it was just so
he's just kind of
uncomfortable.
looking up, like he didn't really look like he was like there, like in the present or like even enjoying it. He was just kind of staring at that moment. I don't know. Maybe you didn't notice that. I saw it though.
I didn't notice it. I mean, he could have just like wanted to do it, but then gotten distracted by whatever was going on in his mind, but didn't want her to stop. Like multiple things could have been going on. There's no way to tell though, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's whatever. It's just the rest of like it keeps on flashing and then it just ends. And then it's like black and then like Peter wakes back up and he's like, someone fucking bit me, and he's talking about like there's a bug or whatever, and
An aphid.
An aphid, yeah. They were all looking through this. He's like, you don't see that? She's like, oh no, I see it. It's an aphid, and they're all talk about what an aphid is and how it's different than a bed bug. And I don't know, for some reason he seems to know a lot about bugs. I mean, it's becoming very apparent.
Naming all kinds of bugs and everything. And an aphid, he says, is a plant lice. It's very, very small, which is actually a set of criteria for this mental illness he has. This delusional infestation is everything is like the bugs on you or in you are very, very small and so tiny. Only you can see them or something like that. Like it's kind of like textbook for this disease, what he's saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's just more and they just trying to justify somehow bugs and how they're infested and whatnot. And then it just continues on more conversation. Like you find out that he was homeschooled.
Of course.
Giving
us homeschoolers a bad name. Again.
And I don't know, it just keeps on going on, and then like he's talking about how he likes her because she doesn't speak the codes or whatever, which it's very apparent, this mental illness at this point, it's almost worth not mentioning anymore after this, that like, okay, we have someone who's mentally ill in this room.
Yeah. But the only thing like that always gets me is she doesn't notice. She doesn't care to notice. She doesn't really fall into it that very often, but he's just so convincing and she's so down on herself. She goes with it.
And she kind of confronts him saying like he's a con or whatever or something like that because he's acting like someone's after him, but he's saying, no, I have people after me, but I've never been to prison. They get in this big fight and then he fucking breaks down. He's all like, yo, I was in the army, they had me on the border of Syria, and they had us taking these pills or whatever, but then something went weird, and I started having thoughts, and they sent me to a hospital in Groom Lake, aka Area 51, and apparently doctors started running experiments on them, and he went AWOL. So, that's basically his whole story of, like, that brings them up to, like, the present of, like, hey, see, so I'm AWOL, they were running experiments on me. Area 51, and then that scene just kind of ends. It's kind of weird.
Well,
because the next thing you just start seeing him poking his fingers and trying to get blood so he can look at through this microscope and everything.
Was it? I think.
Or did I miss a scene?
Once, so he was, if I remembering it right, or according to my notes or whatever, I don't know, but once he finishes explaining everything and she falls into his arms and says it's okay, doesn't a helicopter start going on?
Yes, you're right. All right, but that is not from him. It's from her. Because she starts looking up or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And she sees the fan, and then everything starts shaking and you start hearing like a chopper sound, over the head. So now it's starting to show that she is starting to kind of go crazy herself. Mm-hmm.
And then,
technically, I think that was. Well, no, that scene's about to come up. Never mind. Sorry.
Yeah. And then he's poking at himself, looking through the blood in the microscope. There's fly traps everywhere. Tarps are covering everything.
And then Goss shows back up, the bully boyfriend, and he's just being a bully to fucking Peter, because Peter's just sitting there looking through his microscope at his blood because he thinks there's bugs in his blood. And then there comes this weird comment about Peter reminds him of someone from the pen that they called Mrs. Porterfield, which I don't know what that means. I think that's
He's
just a
calling
guy
him a
that
bitch.
everyone used to rape.
Yeah.
You know, I guess that's what I'm guessing.
Calling him a bitch. He's just an asshole all around.
He's just a fucking asshole. And then I don't know where Agnes and RC shows up. And they get, you know, she's all upset that fucking Goss is here, you know, and stuff like that. And they kind of give him upset. And all right, so here's where I find it kind of interesting. Because she's arguing with him, right? And she's like, I know you were calling me all those times and I didn't say anything, just trying to scare me or whatever. And then he literally said, like, what phone calls? Or whatever. I mean, I'm not sure if that was him just deflecting, but I've been thinking about it after the film that maybe that's starting to show that she was already having some mental illness at that point. Because before, she was receiving these phone calls, but she'd pick it up and no one's there. And she just kept on doing that, you know? So I'm not sure if that was showing mental illness on her part before or not. But he literally did, like, by his face. It seemed kind of confused when he asked about phone calls. So I don't know.
I completely agree with you. I think what's going on is two different kinds of mental illnesses that kind of have the same root. But throughout the entire thing, the entire movie, you get little subtle hints that she has an auditory form of schizophrenia. It's all auditory. She thinks she hears the phone ringing. No one's on the other line. She hears the helicopter. When she looks at the fan, there's not actually a helicopter. So she obviously is having these delusions. And what's his face? Peter is filling in the gaps.
Yeah, all right, so, and then they get in some argument. He's like, okay, I don't want to be here, so he fucking leaves. And then RC wants to call the cops, but Peter freaks out, says, don't call the cops, because you remember he's on the run, he's AWOL from the army, so he doesn't want to get caught, or whatever, because they were doing experiments on him. And therefore, then we start seeing that Agnes is, like, full into this bug thing. Like, she's, like, looking, and she's talking about the infestation, and all this stuff, you know. And then comes out a little bit more about Peter himself, because RC was saying, like, you don't want me to tell you about your friend or whatever, you know, Dr. Sweet or whatever, and I guess there's this guy down at the bar asking about Peter, and he acknowledged that he was a doctor from Groom Lake, you know, he was the one apparently doing all the experiments or whatever on him.
Good burp.
Sorry. And eventually she, like, freaks Peter's character out enough to where he just kind of has a breakdown. Like, I don't know, it's kind of weird. Like, he's getting anxious, he falls on the bed, and then he just starts, like, it's like he's having, like, a seizure or something like that. And they go down, and they're, like, holding him down and trying to help him, you know? But then Agnes is all pissed off at, like, fucking RC, you know, for doing this, and she slaps him and tells her to get the fuck out of here. So, I think this is, like, the last time we see RC. So she just leaves. And then they have this weird thing, you know, more like romantic shit, you know? I'm not calling it shit, I'm sorry. But more romance, a romance scene, you know, like he's laying in her lap and they're all talking and seems all we ever talk about is bugs or whatever. And, I mean, maybe that should be a sign, I guess.
Well, she says, seems like all we talk about is bugs, but I'd rather talk about bugs with you instead of nothing with nobody or something like that. Like, she's lonely.
Yeah, and then they start talking about the larva and the egg sacs and, you know, how, like, it's in his body because he's the one who brought it here, you know, and he's been having his toothache this whole time. I'm not sure if we mentioned that before, actually, but he's been having the toothache this whole time. So he starts, like, tearing out his fucking teeth. It starts to get graphic here.
Oh, it's painful, physically painful for me to watch that.
Because this man has lost his mind. You see him digging into his mouth, pulling out teeth, and blood just starts dripping down his fucking face. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like a dark scene too. There's not like a whole lot of lights on, and I mean, and he's all like, "Oh my God, we see millions," you know, and shit like that, you know.
Yeah.
And then from there, it spirals out of control because the next time we know, there's the apartment. tinfoil everywhere, about a dozen bug zappers, and they're just like in the bathroom for some reason. I don't know why they're not outside the bathroom or whatever. But we see a car pull up, and it's Dr. Sweet. And he comes inside. Well, actually, I don't think I put this, but it shows Goss breaking down the door or whatever to get inside to let to get Dr. Sweet in there. At least I'm pretty sure that was Goss. I thought it was kind of weird.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was, because something happens later. Yeah, it was.
So Dr. Sweet comes in, and then he's just asking about Peter, and I don't know. I guess it's okay. I guess Dr. Sweet likes to smoke some crack.
He takes 2 hits from a crack pipe. What kind of fucking doctor is this?
It's just out of nowhere.
But he starts talking, like, he finds out exactly what the delusion is. He's only talking to Agnes right now. Starts finding out exactly what the delusion is, tries to bring her down to his level. And when that doesn't work, he kind of just tries to go in the delusion with her to try and get Peter. Yeah, because she starts hearing
chopper sounds or whatever. And
whenever it gets to be too much.
And I think she says something about it, so he's just all like, yeah, you are being watched, you know. So he's just trying to, like, manipulate into giving up Peter. But Peter comes out of the bathroom, he's fucking covered in blood, you know. And he's talking about Dr. Sweet, about how he's a robot, you know. And then out of nowhere, he brings out, like, I think it's a knife or, like, a pair of scissors. And he just starts stabbing the shit out of fucking Dr. Sweet. And he's like, a machine, a machine, a machine, you know. And this is where Agnes actually starts seeing reality somewhat, because she seems fucking confused on what Peter's trying to say. And then he goes in this tangent of weaving, like, conspiracy theories about the Bilderberg Group, Project Paperclip, and Nazi scientists making microchips. Timothy McVeigh in the Oklahoma City bombing, saying that he's, like, John Doe number 2. And I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, it gets a lot from here on out, because it's just after he does his rant, he's, like, pushing her, like, into, like, coming up with some reason, you know, like, where did the bugs come from? Was it from Peter? Was it from her? You know, and something about how the government kidnapped Lloyd, her son, 10 years ago because Jerry got paid by it or whatever, and Jerry's working for them now. And then comes my wife's favorite line.
I am the super mother bug. She's convinced that they implanted them in her, and when she and Peter had sex, it created the bugs. I couldn't follow along. It was just a bunch of words.
Because she was saying Peter's the drone, and she was like the queen or whatever. And I guess when they mated, you know, they mated the bugs together. And apparently these bugs are the microchips that the Nazi scientists originally created to connect everyone so they can follow everybody.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. Like, it's pretty crazy from here on, because you're just kind of, you're barely able to follow what they're saying, just because they're such great actors. Like, they did a really good job of creating, like, a manic state of someone who's in, like, straight up psychosis.
Yes.
And then they decide that they can't let these bugs escape, and, you know, and that the bugs can't leave them. So obviously the thing to do is let's just burn the whole motherfucker down.
Well, first, something that confuses me, they got a pizza?
Oh, yeah. All right, so this pizza guy comes to the fucking door, and they're like, did you order pizza? And no. And they slip the money under. They tell them to keep change to get it, and they ruin a perfectly good pizza.
They dig through it. They're like, it's not clean, it's not clean. And then, what's his face? The asshole knocks on the door and tries to come in again.
And then they put the mattress and then something else, like, in front of the door to block him from keep going in.
Yeah.
And then they're just like, okay, we're it, you know? So they lift up this thing, and then they have, like, these 2 huge things, and they start pouring all over. Then they start taking their clothes off, because you got to get naked to burn yourself down, I guess. Which, I mean, I don't know. There's nothing wrong with that, I guess, because it wasn't really sexy at all, because they were all bloodied, and, like, there's wounds all over their body.
Sexual, it was just insane. That's all it was.
So, yeah, and then they start pouring on the cells, and they get a match, and light the motherfucker up. The whole hotel room goes on fire. And yeah, I mean, now we're basically at the end of the film. Everything sets on fire, and doesn't really show Goss again outside the door banging on the door, so I'm not sure. And credits roll. And then it's more like overviews, I think, of Royal Oracle Home. I'm trying to remember what it was.
No, it was the toys of
Well,
Lloyd.
no, that was after, right? But I thought there was like overviews during the credits, and then it stops, and then it shows all Lloyd's toys on the floor still intact, right?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
They're like nothing in the hotel room is burnt. I can't tell if that scene was to show you just like how all this started was with Lloyd, or if it was to make you.
Well, I found it interesting because in the beginning they cut that random scene of the dead guy laying in the room or wherever, right? But at the end they intercut a random scene of everything still intact, like before it went all crazy and shit. So like I think it's William Friedkin's way of like trying to like disassociate reality from the story at all. You know, I think it's in a way of just to try to confuse you because you're just like, oh wait, I don't know what's real. You're like, did any of it happen? You know, for all we know.
You really didn't need that one scene to make me question that. This whole movie.
I don't know. I mean, I love William Friedkin. He's a great director. You know, Friedkin's the one who created The Exorcist and other shit like that. So, but yeah, I mean, I really liked the film. I thought it was pretty good. It's pretty crazy. You know, I mean, honestly, I mean, we're doing this because it's kind of a psychological horror, but it's honestly kind of it's up for debate on exactly what this film is. You know, because there's not like jump scares, and it's not like super grotesque at times. It gets gross, you know, but like it's almost like a romance story interspersed with severe mental illness that just causes like acts of violence of like throughout the mental illness. So, but technically it's classified as a psychological horror. I don't think William Friedkin even classified it as a horror film, but
I was pretty horrified. Guy digging out his own tooth. Like, no. It's not for the faint of heart. This whole movie is not for the faint of heart.
I mean, but it's a really great movie. And I found it interesting because I was looking up, and apparently the theme song for Bug is actually written and composed by Serj Tankian, the lead singer of System of a Down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of... And then there was like another song from Steve Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots in it, or whatever. This is back in the day where they used to create albums for soundtracks for films, so kind of miss those days sometimes. But yeah, I mean... So that was Bug. I mean, you know, my wife loved it, and I really liked it. So I guess the question here is, well, and also before we do our double bill, I just do want to say is that I'm an avid podcast listener. I listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff like that. And one of the inspirations for this podcast, and especially this segment, is Horror Movie Night. I love those guys. They're really great. And I just think their whole concept of what they call a double feature, you know, of a film to pair with this one or whatever, is such a great idea. And I don't know, I just feel like I should acknowledge my inspiration so it doesn't seem like we're stealing, because we're not stealing, because I feel like there's other podcasts out there that do the same thing, the whole double feature, even if it's not like a horror movie thing. I just really like the segment, and I thought it'd be really cool to put it on here. I mean...
It's fun. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how long it lasts. I mean, we could also come up with something different. You know, we'll switch out for it, you know, but... So what we're going to do right now is we're going to do the double bill. I just wanted to say thank you guys to Horror Movie Night for inspiring me. So, yeah. But here, what's your double bill?
My double bill is... I think I would watch this one before Bug, possibly. I don't know. But I think just a nice pairing is Requiem for a Dream. Not necessarily a horror movie.
No, but like that movie is horrifying.
It is.
Because it's like psychologically, like, yeah, like that it's a great pairing, actually.
Thank you.
When you think about it. Wow, Darren Aronofsky. Yeah, Requiem for a Dream. Gosh. I probably should have done like you and really thought about my double bill before we got here, but I'm just coming up with it on the spot here.
Oh, no.
I would have to say The Ruins would be my double bill. I'd probably watch it second. You remember the movie The Ruins? We'll probably do it for this podcast. It's about those people that are in South America. They take this trip and they go to that ancient like Maya period or pyramid.
Oh,
but then,
where the
then the vines and shit
Yeah.
start growing through their skin, and like the locals won't let them away because they're cursed and shit like that.
that is a very interesting pairing. What made you think of that one?
I don't know. It's just like the aspect of like bugs like in your skin and stuff
And
like
then the
that.
vines.
And then the vines are like
That's
are
really
growing
good.
up into them, and it's pretty grotesque. And that's a great movie. We're gonna have to actually do that film for this podcast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. To me, I think it would fit well, and I would start off with Bug to just so we can watch this horrifying thing of showing how mental illness is all fucked and whatever, and then end it with a great film that's similar, but you can laugh at it a little bit more because it's not such I guess it's not sad, because it's not mental illness, it's a curse, and I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'd be my double bill.
That's cool. Very good. Very good.
All right, so that was Bug. William Friedkin, 2006. I mean, I would say give it a watch. It's really great, Like, it's not like your traditional horror film, definitely. But, like, it's super good. I mean, if you love Michael Shannon, it's automatic quite good. He also does another film called Take Shelter, which is about a man who starts seeing, like, apocalyptic visions, and you find out that his mother was diagnosed with, like, paranoid schizophrenia when he was, like, 8 or something. So it's questioning whether he's actually developing another mental illness. And that's a great film, too. I don't think we'll do that in this podcast because it's not really a horror film at all. Because it's not... I mean, I don't know.
You never know. We do what we want.
Yeah,
Fuck you.
so, but I'd say give that a watch. Give Bug definitely a watch.
Oh, yeah.
So, that is our episode for this week, and we'll see you guys next week. This was Smith's Grove Sanatorium Radio. I'm Zoe.
And I'm Gabby.
And good night, I guess. Bye.
Bye.